The Environmental Protection Agency released a proposal called the Clean Power Plan to cut carbon emissions by 30% by 2030. The proposal is part of President Obama's Climate Action Plan.
But when fossil fuels like coal are burned to produce electricity, they release carbon dioxide, trapping heat in the atmosphere and leading to climate change. The best and cheapest way to cut carbon pollution is to generate more power from the cleanest sources and then use that energy more efficiently. Before we wrote the proposal, we heard from thousands of people on the best way to move forward. We learned that by providing enough time and flexibility, in 15 years, we can cut carbon pollution from the power sector by at least 30%, with significant cuts starting in the early years of the plan.
I know people are wondering, can we cut pollution while keeping our energy affordable and reliable? Sure we can. We can and we will. Critics claim that your energy bills will skyrocket. Well, they're wrong. Should I say that again? They're wrong. Thank you. Any small short-term change in electricity prices would be within normal fluctuations the power sector has already dealt with for years. And any small price increase that we see as a result of this rule is about the price of a gallon of milk a month.
According to the LA Times, the proposal seeks to cut carbon emissions from power plants compared to the emission levels in 2005. It could be one of the biggest steps any country has taken to confront climate change. In his weekly address on Friday, Obama promoted the proposal.
Today, about 40% of America's carbon pollution comes from power plants. But right now, there are no national limits to the amount of carbon pollution that existing plants can pump into the air we breathe. None. We limit the amount of toxic chemicals like mercury, sulfur, and arsenic that power plants put in our air and water, but they can dump unlimited amounts of carbon pollution into the air. It's not smart, it's not safe, and it doesn't make sense. That's why a year ago, I directed the Environmental Protection Agency to build on the efforts of many states, cities, and companies and come up with common sense guidelines for reducing dangerous carbon pollution from our power plants. This week, we're unveiling these proposed guidelines, which will cut down on the carbon pollution, smog, and soot that threaten the health of the most vulnerable Americans.
According to Business Insider, states will be given a flexible timeline to create a plan for reducing carbon pollution. These plans will be due June 2016. The Wall Street Journal claims the rule would affect hundreds of fossil fuel power plants, especially coal-fired plants. According to the Washington Post, the states that will be hit hardest by the EPA proposal are West Virginia and Kentucky. More than 90% of the electricity in these states comes from coal. The New York Times states many coal plants could continue running for decades, provided states find other ways of reducing their emissions. The New York Times interviewed Ted Nordhaus, chairman of the Breakthrough Institute, an environmental think tank in Oakland, California. He said, "Is it enough to stop climate change? No. No political leader in the world has a serious agenda to do that." At the Copenhagen Climate Conference in 2009, Obama pledged the United States would cut carbon emissions by 17% until 2020. With the new proposal, the U.S. is likely to meet this goal.
All major economies must put forward decisive national actions that will reduce their emissions and begin to turn the corner on climate change. I'm pleased that many of us have already done so. Almost all the major economies have put forward legitimate targets, significant targets, ambitious targets. And I'm confident that America will fulfill the commitments that we have made, cutting our emissions in the range of 17% by 2020 and by more than 80% by 2050 in line with final legislation.
In 2010, Obama's first attempt at passing a climate proposal failed in Congress. With the new Clean Power Plan, he bypassed the House. According to NPR, the rule is expected to be finalized next year. That's the buzz for now. I'm Julia Rabe.